I don't know, I wasn't really when I'm away from the race weekends, I don't really pay attention to anything that's going on in Formula 1 other than what's happening within our team. So I was neither surprised or surprised. I was just minding my own business. And of course, I think when you change CEO or someone that's running an organization, things, they come with their own formula, and more often than not make changes. So that's inevitable, but that takes time.
What is needed to make something serve a veteran like Lewis Hamilton? A brutal accident? A change of unexpected regulation? Or the fall of one of the most iconic team leaders in the recent history of Formula 1? The truth is that Christian Horner, Red Bull's face for 2 decades, was dismissed fulminantly, and Hamilton simply did not flinch. Are you telling the whole truth? The paddock of Formula 1 does not have a long memory, but even the youngest will not easily forget what happened on July 9, 2025. That day, without prior notice, Red Bull GmbH issued a dry statement, without flourishes or emotional thanks, dismissing Christian Horner of all operational functions with immediate effect. The language of the announcement was more typical of an emergency corporate dismissal than at the end of an era in one of the most successful teams in the history of modern motoring. The news was a shock not because of the unexpected, but because of the way it was confirmed. Without a press conference, without images, without the words of Horner. Only a short message from the dome of the company. But the fall did not start there. It had been managing for a year and a half, fed by an accumulation of factors that collapsed as a castle of cards. The first crack was personal. An internal investigation for alleged harassment in 2024 shook the public image of Horner. Although there were no immediate legal consequences, reputational damage was irreversible. In parallel, compromising messages, private conversations, internal audios began to leak. The credibility of their leadership evaporated while the media nurtured in scandal. The second crack was structural. Under the surface, Red Bull suffered a cold war between its two souls. The Austrian, conservative, led by figures such as Oliver Mintzlaff, and the Thai, more lax in terms of internal management but determining in share capital. Horner, until then the bridge between both currents, turned the obstacle. His decisions, increasingly unilateral, his way of governing as a totemic figure, went from being active to becoming liabilities for investors. And in Formula 1, when the shareholders lose faith, the end is close. The third crack was competitive. The RB21, the car of the 2025 season, ceased to be feared. Red Bull, accustomed to the top, fell to 4th place in the Construction Championship. The reasons were multiple. Loss of key figures such as Adrian Newey and Jonathan Wheatley, strategic track errors, lack of clear technical direction. The car did not evolve as before. The solutions were delayed. And the name of Horner, which once symbolized innovation and leadership, began to associate with lack of control and decay. It is important to stop for a moment and observe the paradox. Christian Horner was the architect of an empire that transformed Red Bull Racing from a disruptive brand in the paddock to a dominant force, built with a clear vision, a fierce management of talent, and a narrative of excellence. And yet, its end was silent, almost clinical. There was no farewell, only substitution. Laurent Mekies, promoted from Racing Bulls, took command with Alain Remains in charge of the filial team. A total change of era. And while in the paddock there was a mixture of surprise and morbid, some pilots and team leaders showed caution. Nobody wanted to be the first to launch a criticism. No one wanted to be the next. Horner's departure was not just a relay, it was a warning. In the current Formula 1, power no longer resides only in garages or career strategies. It is in the offices, in the balances, in the shareholders' meetings where the results are not measured only in trophies, but in reputation, projection, and institutional control. The expectation was clear. The media wanted headlines, fans were waiting for an emotional statement, and the rivals mazily crave a crack on the shield. But when Lewis Hamilton sat at the microphones in the 2025 Belgium GP press room, his response on Christian Horner's dismissal was neither warm nor politician, not even diplomatic. It was cold. Almost clinical. I wasn't surprised or ceased to surprise me. I was simply busy with my things. With that phrase, Hamilton disabled any attempt to make it an indirect protagonist of the most commented drama of the year. And yet his answer said much more than he appeared. To understand that attitude, you must first look where Lewis Hamilton is today. After more than a decade linked to Mercedes, where he shared wars open with Red Bull and with Horner in particular, now pilot for Ferrari, a team that came not only to run but to rebuild his legacy. His signing was a sports and symbolic earthquake. heptacampion looking for redemption dressed in red, leading a historical project that has not specified a title for years. In that new ecosystem, Hamilton's agenda has changed. He no longer lives for external battles. It is obsessed with only one thing: to make Ferrari a winning machine. And that personal transformation is key to understanding its reaction. Hamilton could have fallen into the temptation to adjust accounts with Horner. After all, it was for years the main verbal antagonist of the British. Horner challenged him, he accused him, disqualified him, and was a key piece in the narrative he faced Mercedes and Red Bull since 2021. But Hamilton chose the tactical silence. Because now, in Ferrari, he understands that each public word translates in time and focus on the important. His brief statement, almost indifferent, was not accidental. It was strategic. In addition, there is another dimension, the emotional. Although many associate it with theatrical gestures and emphatic responses, Hamilton has shown in key moments that he knows when to contain himself. By qualifying Horner's career as remarkable and highlighting his ability to lead a complex and talented organization, he acknowledged the legacy without going into judgments. There was no criticism but either complicity. It was a kind of respect from distance. An elegant way to say, I recognize it, but it doesn't affect me anymore. This detachment also reveals something deeper. Hamilton is no longer defined by his former enemies. The change to Ferrari was not only geographical or contractual, it was ideological. And it shows in the way in which he has modulated his speech, how he avoids entering others, and how he protects his competitive bubble. The march of Horner, which at another time would have been fuel to set the forums and headlines, today does not alter its pulse. In fact, what matters to Hamilton is the stability of his immediate surroundings. In his first year with Ferrari, he has worked thoroughly in adapting his driving style, understanding the behavior of the SF25 and establishing a new technical language with his engineers. Unlike his last years in Mercedes, where the car seemed less and less predictable, in Ferrari he is willing to start from scratch. And for that he needs focus, precision, no distractions. The international press interpreted its coldness as indifference, but those who know their career know how to read between the lines. Hamilton is operating at a new level of control, not emotional but strategic. He knows that any bad word joy can destabilize a project that is still under construction. He knows that his time in Ferrari is limited and that he cannot afford others. And above all, he knows that the world is watching him, hoping to know if this new chapter will be glorious or one more disappointment in the history of Maranello. There is a silent phenomenon that is happening within Ferrari, and that perhaps is not yet perceived from outside. Lewis Hamilton has not arrived in Maranello to cause a media revolution or to lift emotional flags. He has come to mutate, to be reconverted, to design, perhaps for the last time in his career, a version of himself adjusted to the new scenario. More sober, more technical, more hermetic. The question is inevitable. Are we watching a new Hamilton? Or are you simply hiding your true letters? Because you have to understand what Lewis Hamilton means in 2025. He is not one more pilot. He is a champion with 7 crowns, more than a decade dominating, and now, by his own decision, he has left his comfort zone. The easy thing would have been to retire from the top or continue competing in an environment that you already know. But instead, it has been exposed. He has chosen the maximum risk, Ferrari. A team that immortalizes you when you earn and devours you when you don't deliver. His current approach reveals something very little explored. Hamilton no longer runs for him. Run to leave something behind. Not in terms of palmares, which is already insured, but of structural impact. He wants to transform Ferrari from within. And that demands more than skill at the wheel. It demands silent leadership, technical connection with the team, and a political reading of the environment. Because in Ferrari it is not enough to be fast. You have to know how to navigate the institutional chaos that has condemned generations of pilots before him. The fact that he has decided not to enter the Horner controversy, when for years it was a central part of the Mercedes versus Red Bull narrative, demonstrates a new maturity, an ability to choose your battles. It is not a lukewarm. This is calculation. In your vision, each statement must have a purpose. And fighting with ghosts from the past does not help build the future he wants. And this is where the paradox becomes evident. In a world where everyone shouts, silence can be the most powerful way of leadership. Hamilton no longer needs to prove that he can win. What he wants now is to demonstrate that he can transform. And that, for a pilot accustomed to being the center of everything, is a change as deep as radical. Perhaps that is why he has also changed his way of interacting with the paddock. Look more. Speak less. It is not dragged by easy narratives. It does not enter the game of flammable headlines or symbolic competition. He knows that every word he pronounces will have echo in Maranello, in the Italian press, in the FIA, in his own garage. And every second he loses explaining what he does not care is time that he does not invest in understanding how that SF25 with which he dreams of returning to the top. But that opens a much deeper conversation. Are we facing a Hamilton that has evolved beyond the show, beyond the clashes, beyond the character? Or are we simply seeing the most intelligent competitor of the paddock playing a long-term game where each word and each gesture are measured to the millimeter? Can this Hamilton reserve be more dangerous than ever, precisely because it has nothing to prove? Unless you can still win again? And this is where I want to invite you. What do you think of this new Hamilton attitude? Do you see it as a deliberate strategy or as a sign that you are no longer interested in getting involved? Are you managing your last stage in Formula One with wisdom, or is it simply disconnected from the great conflicts that once defined it? Leave me your opinion in the comments.